So you were saying your first Derby was 8 bells, and what happened?
8 bells, first Derby, Big Brown, Mikey Iavarone, who looked a lot different then than he does now. But yeah, me and Pops, that was our first ever live Kentucky Derby. And it was funny because I remember after the race, my father cursing at me saying, we're looking at Louisville and we're in section 325, and all you saw all morning were UPS planes flying in their hub there in Louisville. And he said, and we don't bet Big Brown. But we didn't even know about 8 bells until probably an hour or two after the race when we
Hey
heard the
guys,
news
hold on real
reports.
quick. Real quick,
Sure.
I'm getting some audio feedback from one of you guys on your computer.
Let's see. I don't know.
Well, I haven't said anything, so I can't be feeding much.
I have no other audio on. Can you
I
hear
don't
me
have any
good or
audio
no?
on.
Yeah, I think it's Shoe. When you're speaking, I'm getting double from you.
He's an important guy. What he has to say is twice as important as you and me. So he should be double.
Is it better now?
Christian.
I'm trying to like close out stuff but there's nothing else audio. I closed out Twitter.
Okay, there we go.
Let me.
We're good. It was something, I guess, on my side. Sorry about that. So go back to it, my man. Apologies for my technical,
No worries.
amateur hour.
In your bunker out there in California.
Dude.
No, I mean, we didn't even know about 8 bells until probably an hour or two after the race when people were talking at the bars and restaurants. But it was an amazing experience. Obviously, that was a sad story, but Big Brown was an absolute freak that day from the 20 hole, right? I think he was the 20 horse. And yeah, I mean, it was a crazy, great experience to take my father there before he passed. Something, I'll always remember. And for folks listening that have never been to a Kentucky Derby, I've been to, every big football, baseball, basketball, hockey game, every sporting event under the moon, college football championships, etc. There is nothing like Derby Day, and there's nothing like Derby Week. It's spectacular. It really is.
Yeah, I took my pops and my dad, my mom and my dad when I was like 18 one year, and we went out there, and it was a year Charismatic won, so that was a shocker. But it was good to finally take the old man out there because he had never been, and he's the one that that threw me into the mix at Del Mar when I was like 14.
Now, see, Charismatic, to my dad's last living days, that was his story of all stories, because he lived by buyer speed figures, and Charismatic had the highest buyer going into the Derby, and my dad hammered him and told that story for years and years afterwards. Now, for me, buyer speed figures have gone so downhill since those days, but I'll give Andy Byer and his team credit because he won my father a lot of money that year.
Vic, what do you think of speed figures?
I was in a maiden 50, wasn't it? But those that make figures, it's like that great, I kind of quote, a rose is a rose is a rose. Ragozin, Thoroughgraph, obviously are the gold standard, but even to this day, if I was going to buy the daily racing form and I was just an average player and I could only pick one thing out of there, I would take the buyer figures. They are a little compromised now, but that doesn't mean that the whole concept of it is still revolutionary, because people bet a lot of money. I mean, millions and millions and millions of dollars on all kinds of things that don't really have a heck of a lot to do with trying to figure out who's going to win. And I used to give seminars for Thoroughgraph way back in the day, right after Jerry left Len Ragozin and started Thoroughgraph himself, talking about Jerry Brown. And we would start the seminars by saying, we're going to say something to you that you've really never actually considered. But the fact of the matter is it will carry the day, and that is fast horses beat slow horses. And, well, what does that know? Of course they do. Yeah, but people bet so much money on so many different things based on things that don't have that basic foundational premise in it. And that is fast horses beat slow horses. And so Charismatic, it's so cool that you hear that your dad, I hear that your dad bet him because of a fast buyer. because racehorses, I understand the concept of class. I get that. I actually believe your class is also determined by how fast you can run. But at the foundation of it, people truly, racehorses don't know that other horses are worth more money or been keeping company or whatever. They just go out there and run to the best of their ability. They have to trip out and stuff like that. But boy, when you talk about a foundational thing like buyers or Ragozin or Thoroughgraph, without that, I'd be broke and I wouldn't be sitting here.
Now,
well, I am broke and I am sitting here, but you get the idea.
Well, we're horse players. We're all broke in some way.
Exactly.
But let's jump.
We're broken.
Christian, let's jump into this because this is something I've taken on horse racing Twitter many a times, right? I think buyers, like I said, used to be a valuable figure. I think it was innovative beyond. I mean, I could never come up with a figure myself, so I give that team and Andy Byer a lot of credit early on. I think that number has become completely compromised. I think it favors certain outfits. I think it favors Colts over fillies. I'll go to my grave saying that. I think the numbers can be bought this day and age, which is a controversial topic, but I believe it. But as horse players, right? Let's just talk about it. Vic, you're a great horse player. You've been in the game forever. Christian, obviously, you're an iconic horse player to a lot of us on horse racing Twitter when we look at the leaderboards in these tournaments. If you guys had one thing in the daily, and let's face it, the daily racing form is at every racetrack. And it's there for people to buy, right? So everyone going to the Derby and all these big race days, it's you get your racing form and in big bold print is the buyer speed figure, which stands out off the page. If you guys had your choice, just for the average horse player going to the races, would you keep the buyer or would you rather have a Thoroughgraph number, a Ragozin number, or anything else instead of a buyer for the average horse player that goes to the races?
You go ahead, Vic.
Well, a buyer is like a good, solid Chrysler, a Dodge. Thoroughgraph and Ragozin are Maseratis. I mean, so sure. I mean, I'd rather have Thoroughgraph numbers, but some of the stuff that you just said when you were talking about buyers just is that makes absolutely no sense to me when you're saying that
Yes.
they favor certain outfits, or outfits, and that they can manipulate the numbers and I have absolutely no idea why they would want to do that. What do you mean by they favor certain outfits?
The second farms started using buyer speed figures to sell their stallions, I completely questioned the numbers. And when you look at some of these buyers that certain outfits run on debut versus others and certain horses at certain tracks, I'm completely convinced that buyers are absolutely biased, and especially towards the Colts over the fillies.
So you're telling me that if a big outfit wants to stand a stallion and they want to stand him for X amount of dollars and meet and service X amount of elite mares, that they're going to manipulate the entire process to try to get higher buyer figures for that stallion so it enhances their price?
I mean, why are we looking back 30 days now and changing buyers? I mean, that's been like a new thing over the last, year or two. I never remember buyers being changed 30 days after a race. And then you see, the Tampa Bay Derby, which I was a huge Canaletto fan. I had futures on Canaletto. I saw the boys at Coolmore this winter, and they were really high on Canaletto for Chad. All right. They run that race. To the eye, it was a spectacular race, right? What's his name ended up winning over Canaletto and Further Ado. And the buyers came back really slow. And then as you're handicapping moving forward to the other preps, then you hear 30 days later, a buyer's change. Why are they all of a sudden in the last year or two changing buyers, 30 days after a race? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I can explain that to a certain extent from a Thoroughgraph process, but you completely blew off the question that I asked. And that is, you're suggesting that big outfits, that they are now retroactively asking buyer to change the numbers so their stallions have more value. That's what you're suggesting. And so you're saying that you can basically buy whatever buyer figure you want and have that applied to an important horse? Because if that's what you're saying, it's complete nonsense.
I think you can. I personally, I think buyers can be bought. Yes.
Okay, so I'm at Coolmore and I say, that Thunder Gulch, let's go back and change. I mean, and if that's the case, and if these numbers are compromisable just by writing a check, then why wouldn't everybody do it? And then suddenly the numbers become the same again.
I think the big powers that be can do that, and I think and it's not to like an extent where they're doing this every day, and Bob Baffert's getting a better buyer because he's Bob Baffert, but I think it happens. I really do, and I think that the argument with fillies and colts when it comes to buyers is inexcusable. I mean, when you go back and look at McPeak's filly, when she ran, her highest buyers were the 2 times she ran against males. I mean, it's a biased number.
Let me interject for a sec. I really enjoy the ability to turn things over and not just take it at face value. So when it comes to quantifying a figure, and Vic, who's worked with Thoroughgraph, the level of detail that Jerry Brown goes to is like, ungodly and unworldly, and he's dedicated his whole life to try and map every horse together with the numbers. So I think there's certain individuals that go to the extremes. I can't speak to Ragzin. I can speak that buyer, obviously there's some good people behind there. Randy Moss, seems like a stand-up guy. I've always liked the way he presents himself. I don't know if it's ever communicated clearly to the public, the average person, the average horse player, that to create a buyer or a figure, typically you're looking at, the variant, the differential between the norms, the par times, or the previous runnings of the horses, and you're trying to map them against one another so that you can basically tell the story that this horse has beaten these horses by these minute lengths and these times. And so you have two areas. You have the times, you have the raw times on the day, you calculate a variant. So all the sprints get grouped together and all the routes get grouped together. And if they're at similar distances, it's more accurate. If they're at more extravagant distances, if there's a 1.1 miles and a 1.25 miles, a 1.5 miles, and then a mile, and you have to try to come up with a variant for the dirt. And then you've got the track that's getting watered, and people say the track changes. So there's a lot of complexity in factoring in the sample size of the races, the weather, and then the position of those horses when they do perform relative to one another, and then putting a number on it. So when you put it into a single column, and Shoe, I'm not going to completely disagree with you either, but when you're looking at data sets, the more data you have, the more accurate the figure, whether it's the quantity of races, the quantity of horses that are performing at a decent level. If you're talking about claiming 8,000 races and 4 of them on the same day, those horses can go up and down. So your claim that in a maiden race where there's very little data behind it is interesting to me, because when a horse does run a time, there is some flexibility to put whatever number you want on the buyer. You can look at the groups of the sprints or the routes and you can say, yeah, but truthfully, a lot of times those maiden races, especially if they're first time starters, it's not a shot in the dark, but there's wiggle room. Do I believe that Randy Moss and the buyer team could be paid under the table to give a horse that's trained by Coolmore, hey, if the horse runs well, give it a 98 if you can, try to like lean that way. I don't know. That's one thing I'll say. I is it beyond the realm of possibility? No, but I will say that the buyers change because, like I said, if you only have 2 sprint races on a day and you're trying to put a number on it, and one of the races was just total garbage, and now you've got some decent horses racing, and the horses that finish behind it, behind the winner, let's say, and you put it at X number, 100 or whatever, they come back and they run extremely slow, or if they run fast, given the only 2 races were raced that day, there's a lot of leeway. So that's why people will go back in and change figures. I'm sure. I don't know, Vic, does Jerry change thoroughgraph numbers?
Absolutely, they do. Let me. You said a couple of real foundational things when you were starting what you were just talking about. You talked about how important the variant is, and I will tell you that the process to do the variant for thoroughgraph and for the buyers are so dramatically and diametrically different. And by the way, I'm going to preface this little speech by saying, again, I believe that the buyers are the single most important thing in the daily racing form, because I am a player that believes that fast horses beat slow horses. And then you also said something that gave me the chills, which is par times, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. Oh, well, 12-5 claimers going 3/4 at Tampa tend to run X. Well, par times are back in the day, they used to have a thing called speed figures, and it was just based on the track record. And that's why Len Ragozin and Jerry Brown became millionaires, because it was such nonsense. But Christian, you even more so than me, because I'm more of a field handicapper and you're a data-based handicapper. But the fact of the matter is, you said something just now that is incredibly compelling. Not only do you get a smaller sample size, but the variant for thoroughgraph is such genius because it isn't based on horses that are running well that day, or particularly on horses that are running bad that day. It's based on, Jerry will go through and he will look at a card of horses. Let's say there's 100 horses that are going to run that day. And you guys have all seen thoroughgraph sheets or buyers that are all over it. They look like a drunk sailor. You know, a horse will run a 62 buyer, then an 81, then a 42, and this, that, and the other. And then you'll find other horses or thoroughgraph horses that tend to run the same number almost every time. They run a 62, then they run a 63, then they run a 61, or on thoroughgraph, they run a 12, they run a 12, they run a 12 1/4, they run an 11 3/4, then they go on. So they base the variant on those horses, and they'll make a raw number on a horse that could very well be capped out to finish 5th, because that's where he's going to finish. But so, and sure enough, he runs around there. It's going to take a 9 to win. He runs his 12, he finishes 5th, and he gets beat 6 lengths. Okay. But you had a reasonable expectation, a very reasonable expectation that he was probably going to repeat that 12 again. Now you have a horse that finished in the middle of the pack. And by virtue of that, you start your zero based on that. I believe that this horse was likely to run a 12 today. Then when you do your raw figure and he ran an 8.5, you know you got a souped up racetrack. If you do your raw figure and he ran a 14, you know you have a racetrack that's slow that day. So that's the genius of the variant as it relates to thoroughgraph. And then there are so many other things that are so important that don't factor into buyers. Again, somebody's going to watch this, and I want to make this very, very clear. I think the Daily Racing Form is a brilliant publication, and I think that the way it expands and the way that they've done things now can really help handicappers. And not only can they help them, but they can teach them to be better handicappers and how to cultivate their own opinion. But even the way the races are timed with Thoroughgraph and Ragozin, who know how far the run-up is, it's very important, because some run-ups are 20 yards, some run-ups are 65 yards, and that they do very live ground. Buyer doesn't factor in ground. It's shocking to say that, but they don't.
Why don't you tell people a little bit about ground loss? Because I don't think everyone knows what that means.
Well, I can explain. Let me explain both ground loss and variant, and I can do it very quickly. Shoe, let's say you and I go to the beach. We're at Mission Beach, and you and I are going to run 100 yards. Okay? And you are right up next to the boardwalk on loose, cuppy sand, and I'm right down next to the water on sand that's been packed down. And Christian says, go. And we run 100 yards and we finish in a dead heat. Who ran better?
Me.
You ran better by miles, because if we switch that, then you're going to beat me by 100 lengths. That is the way you describe and explain what a track variant is. It's that simple. Now, as far as ground goes, Thoroughgraph and Ragozin have ground guys, and those people and gals will look at every single race. They are incredibly meticulous, because if they don't do good ground, and it gets double checked when it gets sent into Thoroughgraph and Ragozin, horses, the same concept is, if you're in the forepath going a mile all the way around, now you're on that loose cuppy sand, and a horse is on the rail going a mile all the way around, and they finish in a dead heat in the race, the horse in the forepath is going to get a much bigger figure, because he simply traveled more ground to be able to get to the same spot. And that's what ground is all about. One of the genius things that Jerry does is, you'll see in Thoroughgraph, you'll see OP minus, off poorly, or took up. But what he doesn't do, his ground people will recognize trouble, but they will not factor it into the number. He leaves that to us. He leaves it for Christian to see a horse break slow. Well, that cost him 2. Shoe, you think it cost him a length. I think it cost him 4 lengths. We're supposed to, that number is a raw starting point, and then we factor in other ancillary things into quantifying that performance. And I think that's extremely important too. But when you get down to it, ground is incredibly important, because it makes you have the ability to trust that number more implicitly.
You get that?
That was good, Vic.
You get it?
Yeah, that was good, Vic. That was a good way to explain it. I know a lot of, your everyday horse players are watching us on Twitter and on X, and it's like, there's so many numbers, and people are going to pick up the form this week, or their Brisnet or Thoroughgraphs or Rags, and try to handicap the Derby and get into it. I mean, what advice would you guys give them when you're looking at all these numbers? Obviously, it seems like you guys are more Rags and Thoroughgraph users than buyers. I use buyers as a baseline for me. I don't trust in buyers, but I trust it enough to give me a baseline. When I look at I'm a big replay handicapper. That's the only way I pick winners, is replays. But what advice would you give the novice or the general or someone who's digging into Derby PPs this week when it comes to the figures?
Well, when it comes to figures, the Derby is the one race where there really isn't no wizard's curtain to pull back, because everybody's got figures. They're all compared and contrasted, and it's such a finite situation, because you have a bunch of 3-year-olds that none of them have run more than 10 times, and there's only 20 of them. So the figures, there's not going to be any kind of any secret trap doors there with regard to the figures. Talking about betting on the Kentucky Derby, I'm probably going to get my I've been in the 50 years in the business card taken away from me, and I may be banned. They may put a lock on the door at Turf Paradise today. But betting on the Kentucky Derby is kind of like going out partying on New Year's Eve. Because the simple fact of the matter is, when they run on Saturday, a week from today, there'll be 20 horses in that gate, and there will be 20 parimutuel prices that we have to choose from them. Every single solitary price, be it 7-2 or 70-1, of the 20 starters in the Kentucky Derby is underlaid. They're all underlays, all 20 of them. Because let's say Renegade goes off at 4-1 and wins and pays $10. Okay? what he had to do, the guesses that we had to make, and all of the extemporaneous factors that went into getting that $10 mutual ain't worth it. It's too hard. It's too hard. I like a 4-to-1 shot today in a 7-horse field at Turf Paradise. He's got 1 horse to beat. There's several horses in there that couldn't win if you drop him out of a helicopter. And if I bet on him and he wins, I'm gonna bet $20 and get back 100. That's way easier than betting $20 on Renegade. He's trying 1.25 miles for the first time. He's got 19 of his best friends. He may get stopped 13 times, where my horse at Turf Paradise is in a 7-horse field. He's going to have a clear path. And then you get to the long shots, which totally got ruined by Giacomo or Gato del Sol or Rich Strike or Mind That Bird. Rich Strike was 80-1. He should have been 8,000-1. So whenever you see a horse, how is it that in a 20-horse field, no horse in the Kentucky Derby goes off at more than 100-1? It's inconceivable that that could be correct. But it is, because all of the neophytes, and thank God for them, and we're happy to have them, when they see, oh, okay, this horse is drifting up, he's 70-1. Hey, don't forget about Giacomo. Don't forget about Rich Strike. And then a whole bunch of money comes in and knocks it back down to 60-1, right? 60-1, please, given what they have to deal with and what it will actually take to cash a bet in that race. I know it's blasphemous, but I bet on the Derby because I'm a card-carrying lover of this great sport. But as far as actually breaking down a race and looking for value, give me the 7th at Churchill today, because I need to find where it isn't that goddamn hard.
Well, I like that you have conviction and that you're disciplined, and that is exactly what it takes to make money at the game. It's like knowing your boundaries. Part of me also wants to say, respectfully, Vic, what do you say to Tony's, Zoe or whatever, that, when he bet Rich Strike, and he was an overlay at those odds, it's like, there's some models that exist, and your brain can take you to a place, and you might be really gifted at allowance, claimers, turf, pace meltdowns, surface changes, age stuff, whatever. Everyone's different. And that's the thing, is I don't disagree with what you said, Vic, to some extent. Love the Renegade analysis. Taking 4-to-1, go for it. Have it all day long. And when I look at a race like the Derby, I'm thinking, I got to get 30% like out of these horses in order for me to have a chance to beat the takeout and to get 10% profit. So I gotta design a game that's going to discredit all the horses. So to me, if I said that Renegade and Commandment and Further Ado each had a 10% chance, or roughly, if that were true, then the race becomes bettable to me.
But you just said the magic words. They have a 10% chance, and all 3 of those horses will be less than 10-1.
Exactly. So that's why if they're all going off around 4-5-1, 18 to 20% each, if I can cripple that down to 10, I'm saving 8% on 3 horses. That's 24% of the takeout that's now overcome. So now I have to find a long shot that I like. And to your point, all of them should be higher. It's pure chaos in a lot of situations: distance, travel, maturity, unpredictable weather conditions, the track, the pace, that projections that are difficult. Now it's a little easier.
The actual day. The actual day. Steve Asmussen once told me, he says, I always run my best horses in Derby preps in Arkansas at Oakland. Is it because of the track, because of the competition? He said, no, it's the best way I can come at least tiny close to replicating what they're going to have to deal with emotionally and and maturity wise, because Oakland, they get 70,000 people for Arkansas Derby, and they're screaming on both sides of it and all of that. And he says, so it's all about prepping them for the mental aspect of running at Churchill as well. Mm-hmm. All of those things to me are unquantifiable, though. And that's why I just think it's so hard. And I understand what Tony said. And I understand that Tony's a brilliant player. You, Christian, and me, and Tony, you guys play this game completely different than I do. You do. I'm more like Shoe. You know, I'm going to dive in. I'm going to do my movies, and I'm going to wait until I believe that the public is making a huge mistake, and I'm going to try to exploit that. As far as the numbers and bucking the take and all of that, I don't know from that. That's just not how I was brought up as a horse player. I know that it has value. I find out that it has value when you kick my ass in tournaments all the time. But then when I apply my stuff, sometimes I kick your ass in tournaments, and that's the thing that makes our game so great. Yeah, he was right about.
Hold on, Vic. Speaking of tournaments, we got to give you props, you know, because you've done quite well yourself. But I always, and just because you brought it up, but you were the first person that had like a legitimate chance to win the $1 million bonus or annuity in the BCBC and California Chrome, who was my Jedi horse, who I loved, let you down, and Arrogate, your best friend Baffert, ends up coming in and reversing that exacta for you. Why don't you kind of walk through just real quick, and we'll go back to the Derby, but walk me through how you decided, or that BCBC tournament, and then how you ended up deciding on the Chrome Arrogate exacta for the $1 million bonus.
Yeah, I was actually alive for the $1 million 2 consecutive years. I was alive for the $1 million, the California Chrome Arrogate year, and then I was I don't know if it was the next year, but then the next year I was also alive for $1 million when Gunrunner beat Connected. And if California Chrome had won, I would have won the $1 million. He didn't win. If Connected had beaten Gunrunner, I would have won the $1 million again. So I had 2 chances at it.
I think when you mean Connected, when you mean Connected, because Gunrunner beat West Coast and Arrogate and all that.
Gunrunner beat Connected
in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah.
Connected, really? Oh no, sorry. Oh, it was the other Baffert horse. Not Connected, but I know what you're talking about. Oh, why can't I think of his name? But the horse that won the Pacific Classic. Yeah, I got you.
Am I getting this wrong? I'm talking about Connected. When he ran second, didn't he run second to Gunrunner in the Breeders' Cup Classic?
Who was it? Why can't I think of the horse's name?
What year was it, Vic? What year was that?
Oh, maybe 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, it was. Google. It's funny how you remember the trainers and stuff, but Collected
ran second.
Collected.
I'm sorry. I was calling him Connected. Collected.
Yeah, West Coast ran third.
Hey, I'm a race caller that has to get the names right.
And you still are a race caller. Apologies about the tweet. I didn't mean to throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, when we came to the last race with California Chrome, Arrogate had been incredibly impressive, but I mean, to just talk about nuts and bolts handicapping, I knew that Arrogate would have to do what he did, which is to run down a horse that was running away from the rest of them. And he did it, and more power to him. I was sitting at my house for that Breeders' Cup. I wasn't there live, and I had $60K going into that race. And I said to my wife, I said, we're going to have to bet this $60K. She said, are you out of your fucking mind? We're going to bet $60,000 on a racehorse. She said, what price is he? He's 8-5. She said, okay, now I know you're just messing with me. And I explained to her, and this is something that we could talk about with regard to tournament play, because Drew Coatney proved this so incredibly important when he bet $94,000 on Flightline at 2-5. For him, Flightline was 7-1. He wasn't 2-5, given the fact of what he was looking at with regard to being able to get the prize money and all of that. He needed to take that 94 up to 139. And it was the same kind.
But here's the thing, Vic, and I have to interject on this just because a lot of people miss something there. And I'm not saying it wasn't a great move. He won the tournament. if he did not bet that much money, and I don't know the math, he may have finished, third, right? Second or third, right?
Yeah.
I can't, right. So my point is, he's not betting 94,000. He's betting somewhere between 200,000 and probably 250,000, because if he sits on that money, he gets another 100 or 150. So instead of getting 7-1 on Flightline, he's really getting probably like, 8-5. So that's my kind of take on that.
Well, see, I think that the real truth that is somewhere in the middle, Christian. But why would you play a tournament with a huge prize fund? You want to talk about take. When we play the BCBC, we buy in for 10,000 and they take 25% off the top before we ever get to play. Yeah. So when I buy 2 entries and halfway through Friday, they're both worth 10,000, I'm even though I've grown both bankrolls from 7,500 back up to 10,000. Why would you not go all in for the most possible prize money in a turn? If you're going to do that, then just play pari-mutually. Maybe I don't know the numbers as well as I should, but I thought he did what he thought he had to do to try to win first place in the BCBC, and it worked. Also remembering that his bankroll when he started was 7,500. So you're assuming that he just would have still finished third if he had sat where he did. I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But
well, you can look at the math. You can look at the actual standings and see. But I'm just getting people to think a little more carefully about their money when they're in these tournaments. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. It's up to you. You decide how you want to spend your money. It's if you want to risk it, and you can justify it either way, because there's so much EV there, so you can do it either way.
Yeah, well, in the case of California Chrome and Collected, you can't deny that going all in there was the only play to make, because not only was there first money in the BCBC, but there was $1 million bonus. So California Chrome really was. You tell me what price he was if I went all in for 60K. I mean, to try to win first money, which would have been 300 plus the bankroll, which would have been 120 plus $1 million. So what price was he actually in that race, or collected the year before or the year later? So maybe you need more enhancements, and I miss those bonuses and being able to shoot at those. But I understand. Maybe I'm just a dinosaur. Maybe that's why you and Tony are starting to kick my ass more than you used to in the past, because I haven't evolved with the numbers like I should. But if I'm going to play a cash money tournament, I'm either going to hit the leaderboard, or I'm going to end up with nothing. That's just the way it's going to work for me.
Yeah, I mean, you're a good enough player. And you've proven that time and time again, that you're going to strike at a certain percentage of wins in a tournament based on the horses you like that day. So you're going to know that, like the Derby. Are you playing the KDBC?
We have to run. We're running that day at Turf Paradise. So no, I would like to. I would like to, but I can't give it the attention that it deserves.
Yeah, and it does take a lot of attention. But you have already identified a tournament that doesn't necessarily suit you. I think it's up to each person to decide like where they are willing to risk that pot money to get to what they perceive as. So let's say you're going to bet that much money anyway, it doesn't matter. But then again, you're putting money in a pot. So you're taking away 20%, 25%, whatever it is, maybe more. You could be betting that money in cash and make money on that. So that trade-off is something that people overlook sometimes, just to be able to finish first in these tournaments. So I think every person has to design their own expectation around how often are you going to win? How important is it for you to win? Is it more important for you to hang your hat on a victory or on a bracelet or whatever you want to call it, one of those things? How important is it for you to, pay your mortgage? How important is it for you to just sit with yourself and be like, I'm playing the game the way I want to play the game? Because like, to me, I'm starting to evolve where, yeah, like first matters, but on my terms. And I don't.
No, I get that. I get that, and I'm going to be interested in what Shoe has to say, because I have a feeling maybe Shoe is kind of like Elphaba in that he's a child of both worlds. But it is about it. It is to a certain extent about hubris. It is about trying to play against the best players and see where you stack up. And it also is about the time that goes into being a horse player. I will tell you, 3 years ago, when I was retired, I went to my wife and I said, "Hey, honey, guess what? We made $158,000 this year betting on horses." And she said, "Well, that's great. You made about $1.82 an hour." And because she understands the process that goes into trying to all the things that we have to do to win at this game. I am such an obsessive sicko with regard to my prep work and my film work, like Chu was talking about, and all of the other things. And I'm 67 years old. I play tournaments because I can dive in, I can go in, and I can completely immerse myself in a big tournament. But then after the tournament, whether or not there's money and or accolades, because I'm an adulation junkie as well, I also can take that racing form or those thoroughgraph sheets and set them down for 6 weeks. And like, I promise you, I could not name 7 horses out of the 20 that's running next Saturday, because I'm not going to dive into that. And if I was going to dive into it, I could, at this point now, exactly 1 week out, I could give you a 15-minute dissertation about every horse and every that they've ever done since the first time they stepped on the racetrack. So the obsession of the work that I have to do when I play a tournament, that's why I love tournaments, because we have 5 or 6 Super Bowls where you can completely, thoroughly, and utterly invest yourself into it, but then you either do well or you don't. And then I set it aside and do things that don't cause me to have all of these obsessive compulsive situations. I go surfing or I play golf or whatever. That was different when I was younger, but that's probably the biggest reason why tournaments are so important to me now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think for the general person watching this on horse racing Twitter, it's the biggest problem we have is we gamble on every race. I mean, I'm in a group chat with the boys, and they already have a pick 5 at Gulfstream for today. We got early pick 3 at Aqueduct. I mean, it's just this thirst and just absolute degenerative nature of us to just go and gamble and dig into PPs every morning and text each other. And it's too much. And I think one of the handicappers I love to listen to and have became good friends with, Mark Stanton, who Mark gambles a lot of money like you guys. He puts a lot of money into this game. He owns horses. He gambles a ton of money. But the thing he says that resonates with me a lot is his handle hasn't necessarily changed in the amount that he bets, but the amount per race that he bets has significantly changed. He's betting, like Hellmers told me before, he was looking at the contest at Keeneland, the gamble. You know, he had 3 or 4 horses. That's it for the entire day that he was keying on. And for someone like me and a lot of people listening, that's like voodoo. Like, what do you mean? You don't like anybody in the first? You don't have an early double? You don't have an early pick 3? Like, yeah. No, I'm keen on 3 horses the entire day. And then you see the leaderboard and you see Hellmers up there in first place, finish in second place with all that money. It's like, man, oh man. But it's like, find a couple you love, have conviction, and put your money where your mouth is. And even for us who are opening up the cards today at Aqueduct or Santa Anita or wherever you're playing today, Gulfstream Park, it's that be selective, understand where you are good, but more importantly, understand where you're not good. You know, if you're not good at maiden claiming races on the dirt going 6 furlongs, then don't bet the race. You know, if you like long turf races and you're a better handicapper on the grass, stick to those races. And that's just an important lesson, I think, for everybody watching and listening, is be more selective and try to have, you know, more conviction in your bets, but make less bets. I mean, my God, we tend to fire on anything and everything. And the racetracks do a great job of marketing it, right? Pick 5 carryovers, pick 6 carryovers, mandatory day, Rainbow 6 day. I mean, it's nonstop. Turf pick 3s, middle pick 4s, coast to coast pick 5. Like, understand where you're good and where you're not good and focus on that. Like, Mark is diehard on that coast to coast bet, and he bets the coast to coast religiously, and he's probably up over the course of time on it. He finds a lot of value in it. It's no CAWs, and he hammers it. But he's not betting these other crazy bets. And the racetracks have I almost think, you know, when you bet Royal Ascot and you get like the European feeds and even like Saudi Day and Dubai, and you go on your TVG account or Express Bet or whatever you use, there's so many less bets to make over there. And I think America has just like thrown so much at the horse player and fed into this like degenerative, like, bet everything, because, you know, you see it on TVG, FanDuel, you see it on the racetrack feed, and it's a big problem for the average horse player to overcome.
I think it's really interesting that you said that, because if you and your buddies are swinging by Gulfstream and taking a quick look at Aqueduct, then really diving into the opening day card at Churchill, and then Santa Anita, okay, you know, maybe there's a little value there, even though their fields are short. You're not putting in the work that I'm putting in, where I'm myopically focusing on one spot. And
agreed.
By definition, that means I will ultimately get your money. That's what that means. And then another thing with regard to tournaments, which I think is extremely important. I've won like 20 tournaments, and when you win one, and Christian, I think Christian's probably won more tournaments than me, but when you win a big tournament and you look back at it in retrospect, it's laughable how easy it was. In a funny way, it's actually kind of laughable how easy it was, because you can win. Let's say you're talking about the Grade 1 gamble, okay? And if you can, everybody says, well, do you like a couple of horses today? Let's say you go to the races and you just love 3 horses. You just say, okay, these are the 3 horses that I'm going to bet on. And they're all 2 to 1. It's hard for you to be right about all 3 of those horses. It's hard. I get that. But it's not that hard. If you're a good handicapper, you did the work, you know you could exploit bad favorites and all of that. I can tell you, and Christian, you can tell me if this is true or not too, because I've basically kind of based my tournament life on this the whole time. If you can go into a tournament and find 3 2-to-1 shots and they all win, it's very difficult to not win the tournament if you're betting correctly, like how you should in a tournament. Would you say that that's basically a sound thing to say?
If you we could just put numbers to it. $100, 2 to 1 gets you to 300. 300 at 2 to 1 gets you to 9 to 1, right? 9 to 1 at 2 to 1 gets you to 20 to 1. So,
and most tournaments, cash tournaments, are won with the winning bankroll being somewhere between 8 and 11x.
If it's a smaller tournament, sure. Depends. I think it's interesting. It's like this non-linear thing. If it's less than $500 in a tournament, it might take 15 to 20x. If it's middle of the road, it might take 10x. If it's the BCBC, my God, and it's been 28. It's been 20x many times.
So Vic, so I have plenty of friends who gamble a lot of money, Saratoga diehards, etc., that refuse to play tournaments. And when I say, and they're big doubles players, exacta, they just hammer, straight doubles, straight exactas. One of my buddies, John Gallo, great guy. I mean, Saratoga, he cleans up, right? Cleans up. And he's a simple, concise bettor. He will never play the tournaments. And I try to convince him all the time, like, these tournaments are made for you. Well, yeah, but I don't want to give the takeout. I automatically got to give them $250 off the top or 500 off the top. Explain to him a lot of people out there who probably think the same way, why playing the tournaments long-term is probably a benefit over than just playing the mutuals.
Finally, a question that I am completely comfortable. The answer to that question is, let's use the BCBC, okay? And hopefully my bosses at Turf Paradise don't hear me use an expletive, but I'm about to. Let's say that there's 560 entrants. Did you say that's the right number usually, Christian? About 560? I think it was 564 last year.
I don't know. I think it's around 600 now. I think it's
Here you go, 600. Let's use 600. Okay. There's 600 entrants in the BCBC. Of those 600 entrants, 552 of them have no fucking chance of winning the tournament. None. Zero. Mm-hmm. Some of them are in there with a $10,000 buy-in that started in a $39 feeder. So they're not going to, some of them just call Tim Schramm and say, listen, I'll just take the 7,500. So the quest, the parimutuel quest, at least for me, not talking about the Tony and Christian, percentages and all that, is to exploit dead money. And any day at the racetrack, my target is to find when the public is making a terrible error, and I'm going to exploit that. But in a big tournament, there's even with that money off the top, in a big tournament, there's so much dead money in there, because the guys, even if Christian, and you know this for a fact because you've seen it. Let's say we're playing the summer betting challenge at Del Mar, and a guy buys in, it's $6,000, the bankroll's $4,000, and he's had a great day, and he's going to the last two races, and he's at like $23K. Okay, we both know what he has to do with that $23K, but he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. He's going to be happy with his ROI from his original bankroll. And in the BCBC, I truly believe, I think that there's like 30 guys every year that have a real puncher's chance at winning the BCBC, and there's 400 that no matter what happens, no matter how good they handicap, no matter how right they are, they're not going to win the tournament because of what you must do in the last couple of races. Every year for many years, and I've cashed top 15 in the BCBC 5 times. My goal is to get to a point where if I can be right once in the last couple races, I'm going to finish top 10. And to get my bankroll to that point. Most players just won't do that. They just won't do it because it's to use a poker analogy. Not only the great players that play like in the main event could give 2 rats patooties about cashing. What they're trying to do is to get extremely deep in the tournament. Not only that, but with a huge stack. And most players, be they horse or card tournaments, are just trying to survive and advance. That's not going to work in this kind of a format. And so the answer to your friend as to why he should play tournaments is because there's even more dead money in those tournaments than there are just in a regular old day where you have rank and file people not doing the work and firing away on Saratoga. That's the answer to that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to think mathematically because you love it so much, Vic. Like how to put a percentage on that whole question, and thinking if somebody's going to bet $2,500 in the BCBC and not put the money in the pot, what are they going to do, and what does that translate into? And I feel like unquestionably, if you took that 2,500, let's just use this example. If you have 7,500 and you're gonna bet, let's say, a 3-to-1 shot, and you get to 20K, well, you have that other 2,500 that you could have bet in cash, and you could have gotten another 3 times 2,500, another 10K or whatever, right? So you could have gone from 25 to 35. So you're going from 25 to 35. You're getting 35K, provided you're going to bet the 10. Normal. If you get to 35K in the BCBC, you're going to get rewarded with an additional, see, this is the thing. You have to figure out how to take that 25K now and just get it up another 10 or 15K, and you're going to get another 20K. So like, that's the thing is, and you have to understand you have the stomach and the balls and the stones to send it, in the first place. And then after that, how can you incrementally get yourself up to another number that's bigger? And those are the things that make people uncomfortable, but
very uncomfortable.
It's all digital.
Yeah, but here's one thing.
So much of this is digital. It's not like you have like stacks of cash.
Here's one thing about that though, Christian, because yes, let's say you've got your bankroll and you have your 7,500, and then you bet it on 3-to-1 shot, and now you have your 25K. But let's remember that those are massive bets. And it's certainly a massive bet if you're not in the tournament and you just bet your 10K on your 3-to-1 shot or your 5-to-2 shot or whatever. There are precious few tournaments, the BCBC being one, where you won't have diminished returns because you're overbetting the pool. Yeah. So that's not gonna work in almost all tournaments not named the BCBC or perhaps the Pegasus or maybe the Grade 1 Gamble, but
KDBC, you could bet it on the KDBC. Okay.
I'm almost always working for that tournament, so I don't really know that much about it. I wish I could play it. I really do. So it's not just a function of we still have to. You can't move the needle. You can't move the needle with the bankrolls that we have in the BCBC. You can't affect the board with your play. Even if you're cold decking a $5,000 exacta, you'll knock it down a point or two, but you'll still, if you're right, it's still a very good thing. But the BCBC is exclusive unto itself in that you have that ability to make these monster bets and not be worried that this horse that you think is a prime opportunity at 3-to-1, but you cannot, even I know enough about this, you cannot go big on that horse and risk the fact that you're the reason that he became 2-to-1. And in the BCBC, you don't have to worry about that.
I mean, you're starting to see some of the doubles get smashed. I mean, there over time, it's kind of parallel to CAWs in some ways, because the last minute odds drops can come from some of the plays in the BCBC, especially.
Oh, I know they do. You know what percentage of the total handle we were this year at the BCBC?
I would say it's over at least 6, 7, 8%. What is it?
13.
13, yeah.
We were 13% of the entire Breeders' Cup handle. Tim Schramm gave me that number.
What were the CAWs?
Is that same as they always are, 35% of everything?
I mean, the thing about the CAWs, though, I've heard too, is they don't slam the Breeders' Cup because a lot of their models don't necessarily work as well because of the Europeans coming over. Of course. So that creates a conflict to some of their math.
It creates a great conflict. It's, you know, the CAWs, we can't live with them and we can't live without them. It's really that simple.
Yeah, like paint the picture of if they went away.
So would even more racetracks. I mean, some CAWs are somewhere between 30 and 35% of overall North American handle. So imagine the business models at these racetracks that are scraping each and every day to put out purses to attract field size, which would cause betting, which is how racetracks make money. And you don't have the handle from the CAWs. You would basically be cutting purses by 35%. And if that happens, then the game's going to die. It truly is one of the great catch-22s in the world because the CAWs are alienating some players, and I get it. It is incredibly, incredibly frustrating to bet a horse that goes into the gate at 10, comes out at 8, and wins at 6. I mean, it flies in the face.
What about the horse that goes off at 18, finishes the finish line at 18, and then the winner's circle goes down to 8?
That happened this year at Keeneland, and they said it was a software problem, and I get it, and they're not going to lie. The one thing that I will say about the CAWs, and as a horse player, I have been frustrated, but nobody ever talks about when they jam on a horse that's 3-1, ends up going past the quarter pole at 4-5, and doesn't win, and the horse that you bet at 4-1 pays $17. Nobody ever talks about that. So it does go both ways.
So if you were the boss, Vic, and you were running it, what would you change about CAW play, or would you leave it the way it is? Would you provide further restrictions?
You're talking to the piano player now, and I have to be very careful with this because there's guys out there that really, really know this better than me. I think what they're trying to do with restricting betting after X amount of minutes left is extremely important, and it's helping the average bettors, and the CAWs will find a way to adjust to that, and their models will still work. They may not work to the extent that they do now, but they will still work. What I would do is I would give players an opportunity to see if they could fight back against the CAW players by giving them a seat at the table of the war that we play pari-mutually. And I'm not going to take credit for this idea because this idea was one that of a good mutual friend that Christian and I both have, and that's a guy named Jamie. He is pitching to have a in real time television show at a major facility. So let's say NYRA, that at 3 minutes to post, they come on and all they talk about to the players out there are market moves. here's where the market moved. Here's how you can, if you choose to, here's how you can try to exploit that, where you can sort of counterpunch to the CAWs. One of the things that people are so incredibly frustrated about is that they're getting this late access to the pools, but you also never really have time to try to counterpunch to that, to make decisions. Okay, well, we see where this market is moving. So do we want to be a part of that, or do we want to take a contrarian point of view? But again, it's such an incredibly hard juggle because the CAWs mean so much to us in the industry, but the rank and file players mean so much either. And if we lose either one of them, we can't peacefully coexist.
And I think that's the problem, is the average horse player feels like the major racetracks have totally placated towards the CAWs, and they've left the retail horse players in the dark. And when you look at where this is all trending, is we're losing retail horse players every day. I mean, they feel like they feel beaten up. Keeneland, which used to be like the boutique meet of all boutique meets, my favorite place to bet on horses, has become, let's be honest, a shit show when it comes to late odds movements. It's incredibly frustrating. It's difficult for the retail player to handle. And I don't know if you're in my camp, you could say I'm crazy. Dennis Drazen, who people can argue has done some great things and maybe some not so great things, but Dennis introduced fixed odds wagering in New Jersey. It's been here for now, 5 years? I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because the CAWs don't want it. But I don't know why we can't have a national fixed odds program. I really don't. It would be fantastic. The idea that you could love a horse in race 7 at Aqueduct today and get your 10-1 fixed morning line, and the CAWs can't coexist with that, to me is absurd. The CAWs don't want fixed odds wagering in this country. I've had conversations with Aidan Butler, who I respect a lot, and Aidan came from that England model of fixed odds, and he doesn't want it. And I'm convinced the CAWs don't want it for a reason. But what's your take on a national fixed odds program? And I know there's legislation in Kentucky that's going on right now, but if you could have a fixed odds where you could, and again, at Monmouth, I can go to Monmouth and I can get 5-1 on the fixed, and the tote may be 8-1. And in that case, I'm going to bet the tote. There's a lot of times where the tote odds are better than the fixed, but at least as a retail player, I have that option to do so. I mean, what do you guys think about a fixed odds program, a nationwide fixed odds program for the retail player?
Christian is way more qualified to answer that than I am, because I don't really know. I mean, you have to remember that handle is what the only way racetracks make money. The only way racetracks make money is handle. That's it. That's how so whatever would cause them to be able to make the most commissions and generate the most handle is what that they want to try to do. I don't even know the dynamics of the fixed odds. I've never been part of it. I know it exists. So that's a much better question for Christian.
I mean, the takeout's less. So Monmouth has the two pools. They have the fixed odds and they have the parimutuel game.
And they never adjust. So you can just go up and bet a 5-1 shot. What if you want to bet $100,000 on a 5-1 shot?
No. They limit you because it's Monmouth Park and it's one operation, and I think it's a max.
Okay, so in that case, it actually is still parimutuel.
Yeah, right now I think the max win bet you can make, Vic, is 5,000. So you can't go up there with 20 grand on a first-time starter and just hammer it. They don't have the. But again, this is Monmouth Park, a small jurisdiction. If we spread the risk, over the course of a country, and made it a nationwide fixed program with Naira and Churchill Downs and Stronach and whoever, I think they could take more risk, and maybe that max, win would go up substantially. But at least you have the option.
But Shoe, it's still parimutuel. I mean, you and I.
Sure.
You and I, let's talk about betting in Europe. You walk up to a guy in a stand and you say, what about number 4? I'll give you 6-1. And then you go search around for a different price if you can get a better price. But those guys are adjusting their price based on the amount of money that they've handled. So this kind of sounds, and again, you know more about it than I do, because I actually know nothing about it, but it sort of sounds like mental masturbation to me, in that there's still a market. And then the bet takers still have to make their cut. So you guys remember?
But at least,
do you
but
guys
at least you
remember
know
the
what you're
Jockey
getting.
Club? The when they tried to open a casino in Vegas, they called it the Jockey Club, and they decided that they were going to book everything. They were going to book any bet you wanted to make. They would book it.
When was this?
Oh, Christian, what was it? 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. They built, huh?
I don't know about it.
Oh,
yeah, I don't know either.
They had a hotel casino, and they called it the Jockey Club. And these guys said, these horse players are all degenerates. They don't know what they're doing. You know, we'll just be bookies. We'll just be bookies because all bookies drive Cadillacs, you know, and all bookies are, you know, they're printing money. So they had this place, this casino in Vegas called the Jockey Club. And they said, we will book everything. We'll book everything. Just come on in and, you know, we'll pay track odds and we'll book everything. They closed in 2 fucking weeks. 2 weeks they lasted. And those, us, you, me, Christian, and all the others, Tony and all of these guys went, okay, thanks very much for that. So you're telling me that horse is 9-2 at Santa Anita, and if I bet 10 grand on him, you're not going to lay it off and I'll get 9-2? Yes, we are. I said, thank you very much. And they closed in 2 weeks.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
But I think to spread that risk across the country where these treks could, God forbid, work together and create a platform where we had fixed odds wagering, I think it would be absolutely fantastic. The idea that I could go and look at the prices at Monmouth and say, oh, I'll take the 4-1 over 3-1 and book my bet and know exactly what I'm getting when the horse finishes the race. I mean, we're trying to get, right, the goal is to get more people to bet on horses.
How does Monmouth make money out of that?
It's a lesser takeout, Vic. I think so. What's the regular tote? Win Play Show is probably what, 17%, 18%, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think the fixed is around 13%. I could be wrong. It's a few percentage points less than your regular pari-mutuel pool. And to be honest,
but there still is a vig.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And it adjusts, like you said, if somebody goes and puts $1,000 on Kelly Breen's horse in race 3, all of a sudden those odds adjust immediately. But at least you know what you have.
Wait a minute. So the fixed odds change.
Well, of course. If I went and made $1,000 bet.
Okay, so you're saying you could go up and make $1,000 bet, and once you have that put in at 3-1, you're going to get 3-1.
Absolutely.
But the next guy that wants that horse is gonna get 8-5. Maybe,
yes, correct.
Okay.
Absolutely, correct. Okay. But at least you know what you have.
That's just, I get that. I mean, that sounds interesting to me. It still is just rebranding pari-mutuel wagering to me, but okay.
But in the world of CAWs where you don't know what you're getting,
I get that.
It provides.
Let me ask you this, guys. Hold on. Let me ask you then. What do you think of the betting exchange? Because obviously I was with Betfair for 4 years and helped him over here. We tried to get it going, got close. Then the whole poker thing happened. Black Friday, everything was reeled back, and then we ended up. Me and the team ended up helping buy TVG to be a pari-mutuel system. And I was excited. I thought Betfair was actually going to really go for it, after 4 years, and they just, they fell short, but then they got, years later, Schwarzenegger signed something, and then Monmouth came along with this kind of demo. But the problem was with the Betfair exchange was that they could only limit it to the bettors in that state on that content, I believe, which was a huge deterrent for growing. But I'm curious, if there was a betting exchange available right now, because Shoe, you seem to be a fan of this. If there was do you know about the betting exchange much, Shoe?
A little bit, yeah.
Have you ever played with one?
No, but I've seen the websites, but I've never actually played on one. No.
I'll at some point we should do a demo. That would be fun. Maybe we do it on the show sometime. Obviously you can't really do it because you're here and they don't take bets from Americans on racing, but the whole idea is, and Vic, you may know this, but you just have, it's an eBay for betting on horses, and they take a small percentage, but this percentage is on the winnings. And either way, it's a lower takeout. and the participants just match based on their odds, and there's stakes available. And if you want to get that money down, it might just sit there and nobody takes it, and it just sits there and gets refunded back to your account. Or somebody might take it and might offer you a better price, and you have to decide when is it time to take what price for how much of the stake. And
is that pretty much what Kalshi does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So same concept. But funny enough, when I was at Betfair, we had the presidency, who can bet on who's going to be the next president, what's going to be the name of the next pope. And it was kind of just like this thing over on the side, but it was never allowed in America. And so once it took 30 lawsuits, I read, to get Kalshi approved or predictive markets approved to be regulated in the way that they were, and an administration that's more friendly for that. So I'm not sure if this whole predictive thing is going to last, because of the whole, the soldier that was just brought up for, betting on the Iran war situation, or no, the Venezuela thing. And it's like, now he's being brought up, and anyway, the point is you don't want to, like, from a national security situation, have, tell people that could tip off the other side. So it's a very strange thing. But anyway, the point is, the exchanges are a very, very, very beautiful mathematical way for people to get money down at the odds, like you're talking about, Shoe, that you want. So should we be pushing for a betting exchange, since you like the idea of fixed odds? Isn't that a cleaner way of doing this? And it's, you're still gonna have CAW sharks there. I mean, what do you think Jelko and Dr. Nick and Dominic and all these other guys? I don't want to get, throw out everyone's name, but those are the two biggest ones. And, they're living in the exchange worlds. Like, who do you think is setting the odds? And there's also, Jelko has his own exchange. So there's market makers. When you're that good at something and you can literally dial it in so tight, and granted, we have to beat them. That's our job, right, Vic? It's like, we have to find a situation where everyone's going to jump on a horse. Like, I'll give you another example. Not that I made money in the race, because I could have, and I don't want to say how, but Forever Young going into the Dubai World Cup was absolutely an underlay. Like, coming off a huge win in Saudi, where they clearly wanted to win that race because of the purse, way, 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 way more money than the Dubai World Cup. And they're going to Dubai just because, and obviously there's a war going on nearby. It was like a strange situation, but Magnitude wins that race. And he's clearly like a horse with upside going into that race, but you're only getting 3-1 here, but you could get, 8-1, 10-1 elsewhere. But that's an example where I don't even know what the CAW's position was necessarily, because if you look at the odds overseas, he was, 8-1 and above. So that tells me that the CAW money was not on that horse, because he would never float at 8-1, because if that were true, they would have smashed it down to 6 or 5. So in the American pools, that was just probably more or less American money. Well, these are small pools anyway, but yeah.
Here's the problem with that, Christian, and that is, you can fund a betting exchange and decide which fly is going to take off from the windowsill first. And if you can get, a place that's taking a low vig, and you can get equal play on both sides, then you've got something. The problem is it can't work for thoroughbred racing, and it can't work because it costs a tremendous amount to actually put on the show. You have to have purse money. You have to have all of the things that go into actually running a live race meet. And all of that, even a place like Churchill Downs, there still are margins. All of it that goes into presenting that product. If you and I just want to say, okay, I'll take Edmonton and you take Anaheim the next time they play, right? That's going to be there out there for us to decide where the value is. But if it's horse racing and all of that money goes into a betting exchange, and it doesn't go through the windows at any racetrack that's putting on the show, then that racetrack is going to die, because they are reliant upon handle to put on the show to give us the opportunities to bet on those races. So it's not like this is just a thing out there where there's going to be a horse race and we can all get together and bet amongst ourselves.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm saying pay the industry. I mean, that's what I pitched for 4 years, is that we'll give them, whatever percentage made sense. We would guarantee minimums. We would make sure that there's no cannibalization and stuff like that.
Hey, how well is the industry doing now? I mean, how many more racetracks are going to close in the next 5 years? Monmouth Park is dying right now. I mean, I've heard plenty of rumors. I think Naira is going to buy Monmouth Park, which may save it. But Monmouth Park is going by the wayside. Gulfstream Park's gone in 5 years. Santa Anita's demoed the day after the Olympics. I mean, I don't know. Hawthorne is bankrupt. The model with CAW, I mean, and CAWs have been in play now for how many years? How many years?
You're saying that as if it's a bad thing. I believe that major contraction is in the process of happening, and when it finally, it's hard because there's so many people out there whose lives depend on it and all of that. But without a little revolution, a lot of things never get done, or you just accept a status quo that doesn't work for anybody. You're right about Gulfstream and Monmouth and Emerald and Canterbury and Santa Anita and all of that. But at the end of the day, there is going to be pari-mutuel wagering on horses in North America. In my opinion, what it's going to be are these supercells, New York, Kentucky, California, Arkansas in the wintertime. And so all of this is, and there's a lot of people who are going to be damaged, and it's going to be awful for a lot of people. But that revolution is coming to where when you have these foundational huge signals, everything comes together. Now you're running races at the New Belmont, and every race has 14 horses in it, because horsemen don't have the opportunity to go to Monmouth or to Gulfstream or to Penn National or to Parks or whatever. They're all going to it's like the racing in Japan and in Hong Kong and all of that. There's always going to be betting on horse racing. And what I envision is in 10 years is you've got one or two huge Eastern signals, one or two huge midday signals, and then the California signal. We may end up with 14 racetracks in the whole country that are actually running races. But the product that they can put out because of this contraction will be epic. And horse players will find great places to bet on the races. I mean, to put it in its simplest form, let's say today we're going to run a 6-horse field at Gulfstream, a 6-horse field at Laurel, and a 6-horse field at Aqueduct. We can take those 6 horses and run them all in one place, and now we've got 14 with 4 alsos. And that's going to generate way more handle than what's generated at those 3 spots individually, even if you combined it.
And I agree with you. Contraction is needed in this sport. I've been saying for years, Gulfstream Park should not be running in the summertime, right? Those horses should be coming up to the Mid-Atlantic like they used to do years ago, right? They should be up at Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey. That's where those horses belong in the summertime. They shouldn't be running at Gulfstream Park in the summer. I get it. But at what point is contraction in this sport hurting not only the retail horse players, but the fans? Because now in the process of contraction, you're turning off a lot of your fans and your retail horse players. And that to me is the problem.
How are you turning them off?
Well, if you close Monmouth Park, you'll turn a lot of race fans off. If you close Gulfstream Park, you're going to lose a lot of South Florida. I think you're going to lose a lot of fans of this sport if you're closing tracks left and right.
Shoe, 94% of the money that's bet on any racetrack is bet by people that aren't there.
Agreed. But you're losing, again, we're talking about a sport here, right?
Okay, so you're talking
about fanhood.
You're saying that some guy that I lived in South Florida. I called the races at Gulfstream for 7 years. And back in the day, Gulfstream was the quill. But are you telling me that if, let's say, Gulfstream goes away and you have this body of horse players that loved Gulfstream, they would either go there for a day of racing or they'd break open their farm, go to their ADW, and they'd fire away on Gulfstream. And that's what they loved. Are you telling me that those people are now going to say, screw it, I'm not betting horses anymore, and they're not going to look at the card at Belmont? Because I can promise you they're going to. And they may not have that on-track experience. They may not have the local knowledge and the feel of all that goes into that. But horse players are going to find a way to feed that passion that they love of trying to pick a winner. And if Gulfstream closes, those people are going to bet on NYRA. They are going to bet on NYRA. If Santa Anita closes, they're going to bet on Del Mar. And where are they going to run in the wintertime? Well, we'd like here in the Valley of the Sun to think it's going to be Turf Paradise, because that could very well be the case, in which case I'm on the right team. But horse players are going to find places to bet. And that's never changed for 150 years since they ran the first parimutuel race ever in Pleasanton, California. It was the first North American parimutuel race, believe it or not. Horse players, you can't kill them. They're just going to they're going to adjust, and they're going to refine and retool, but they're still going to fire away on the races. And if they can at these mega places that are running these amazing fields and all of these great betting opportunities, where the CAWs now are a 8% factor rather than a 38% factor, that's what in my personal opinion, that's what the future has to be.
Okay, wait. I got to interject here. So first of all, the CAWs are never going to be below 30. It's never going down. So as the pie grows, they're still going to,
well,
they're like the big fish on the shark.
Maybe we wouldn't need them as much as we do now. Maybe we wouldn't need them as much as, and we could, because I do know that tracks say to CAWs, I do know this, you got to tone this one down. You know, you've got to, you're overwhelming them. So the CAWs do understand that you cannot be short-sighted and just completely shove your whole stack into the center of the table constantly. That's not going to work. There has to be a give and take.
Yeah, there's perception issues around it. Obviously, it's perception is reality. It's everything. So if the odds drop and then people continue to lose, like the average retail players losing between 30 and 50%, if we can't stop the bleeding, then the small fish will all go away, and it'll just be a bunch of sharks like swimming in the ocean, like after the dinosaurs die or something. There won't be anything around.
There's not many left right now. I mean, you guys are in the tournament world. You're high-level horse players. The average person on Twitter that cares about horse racing now it's Derby time, so not right now. Right. But through the course of the year, I mean, it's dying and dying. I mean, the retail horse players walking out of this game faster than you guys could ever imagine.
They're saying I get they are, but are they actually?
Oh, 100%.
You've seen some of the handle. You've seen some of the handles drop.
Huge. My handle was probably down 45% last year.
Yeah, but I mean, there was also the data that came out like in the last month or two that handle had dropped 20%, and it's coming from the average small player. So I want to like tie some of all this stuff together. So, number one, the reason that the game is suffering is because there's no growth. Like every other industry, you have a 20% target per year, or even more aggressive, and we're content with flat or just holding on for dear life. So number one, the lack of attracting new customers is the biggest misstep. So because they're not going after fantasy players, sports bettors, poker players, day traders, because those groups of audiences that do like to risk money are not being targeted, and there's no marketing campaigns, there's no products, there's no innovation, then there's no reason why to expect anything different is going to happen. So that's the first thing that's not happening, right? And if that's not addressed, which it hasn't been addressed, and the reason it's not being addressed because a lot of people aren't, I think, cozy with the mindset of the horse player and what we live and breathe and need. And so they think, oh, let's strap on a new wager. Let's try the pick 7 or the super squared trifecta or some stupid stuff, right? So it doesn't, it's not solving the problem. So, and also racing has a huge learning curve, like unlike anything else. And you have competitive forces that are way more fun and cool and sexy and interesting. And your dopamine spike is happening at about 50% of the time when you play poker or you bet a sports game. If you're betting on a money line or a point spread, whatever. So in horse racing, if you're really freaking good at this, you're winning at 20% of the time. You're going to lose 4 times. You're going to bat 200. That's very uncomfortable for, the Griffin Johnsons of the world, right? Who might just sit there and, seems like a great guy and loves the game, but is he going to be turning into a true horse player betting 50 grand a year or 100 grand a year? No. And so you can't build a business until you have new blood coming in. So that's the biggest issue that the industry is facing. And now we're leading to the contraction. Like what you said, Vic, is good. The contraction will create a better product. The CAWs are not going away. They're going nowhere except here because they've spent God knows how many millions building their teams and their algorithms, and that's permanent. So we have that necessary evil. Like we said, we can find a way to coexist. And then we have product innovations like the betting exchange. And I think there is something to fixed odds. It's not standalone. And yes, the industry needs to be paid and needs to be paid a ton. But the whole idea of like being afraid of a horse losing and all that stuff needs to go out the window. And especially with what's happening in the prediction markets in Kalshi right now, like we just need to start taking some risks, I think. And and I wanted to talk about the HISA stuff too, because that's also creating some more strife because all these horses are getting scratched. But like when you compile all this stuff, it's not a surprise that things are going to continue to dwindle. So that's why I think it's like, people like McPeak and other thought leaders and even Rapoli and Portnoy and all these guys, everybody needs to just have a conversation. We all need to be talking, because the more talk, then things are being brought to the surface, and the Jockey Club is being challenged to rethink their way of doing business. Great. Let's turn it over. Just like, this administration's done. Let's turn over things. Let's figure out what's going on. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but let's turn things over and not just like think that it's going to be okay. And then hopefully, like with some intelligent minds, will agree, collectively on a few risks. But how do you guys feel about what I just said? And then I want to talk a little bit about the vet scratch stuff.
I think that what you said has, my first job at the racetrack was literally 50 years ago. And I think we're facing the same problems that they did then to now, except for it's so much more difficult now, because when I first came to the racetrack, it was basically one of the very few legal ways to get that dopamine rush by gambling. So how do you cultivate new players, and how do you, to me, it's always been, and this applies to your expertise, not mine, Christian. It's like everybody was talking about how stupid it was what they did at Turfway with the octafecta. I didn't think it was stupid at all. What they're trying to do, that nobody would ever suggested that you were supposed to try to handicap that. They wanted it to seem like a lottery with less takeout, and they seeded the pool. And so it wasn't stupid at all. It's just the Twitter geniuses say, well, who would bet that? The answer is a complete neophyte that just, all you had to do is tell him, look, it's no different than a scratcher or a lottery ticket, but we're going to put some money up, and we're not charging you 50%. So we're charging you significantly less, and then maybe your numbers will come up. That's what they were trying to get the people to understand. And I think that there's going to be something to that. So the hard part is, as you said, Christian, there's such a long learning curve. The way, when I do my handicap shows, I try to pick a winner, but I also try to, I'll pick a horse that I actually think might be my third horse, but I look at it as a better teaching tool. So because if you can't take a $2 bettor into a $20 bettor into a $200 bettor by teaching him how to cultivate his own opinion, then you're not ever really going to get anywhere. So I you just said the magic words. The question is, how the heck do we do that? And if you can answer that question, you can become a very, very rich man.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think you're.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, you look at DK and FanDuel. What was it, December or January? I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think their overall handles had dropped pretty significantly, especially on NFL betting. I think the Super Bowl was their worst handled Super Bowl in 7 years? I forget what the number was. I think just like sports betting, just like playing slots, just like playing the lottery, if you're not winning, you're not gonna play. You're not gonna put more money in. And you have the horse player who, for years, it's a very difficult game to win, right? Like you bat 300 in Major League Baseball, and you got a shot to go in the Hall of Fame. You bat 200 playing horses, you're doing really well, really well. It's always been a difficult game to win, right? It's now even harder with CAWs. And instead of going to Monmouth Park on a Saturday here in the summertime and hitting, 3 exactas over the course of a 10 race card and walking away a winner, you're lucky if you go even if you hit 3 exactas on a 10-day card. The payouts are absurd, and these CAWs are watering down the markets. They're making it just so unappealing to play anymore. And unless that changes, I don't know how we keep retail players in this game.
Well,
And
it
I'll give
changes.
And
racetracks.
the question is, how can that change? And the answer is, I don't know. The things that Christian says make sense to me. Again, remember, I'm just the piano player. I never wanted to be involved in racetrack management, but I mean, I think we are really at ground zero. How can you change it so the rank and file people feel like that they've got a puncher's chance? If we can't do that, and I don't know how to do it, and I'm too old to try to figure it out, but
Well, Vic, you said it best earlier in that if you get a better product and the odds, and there's 10 or 12 horses in a race, so like the contraction it's just like Amazon and the mom and pop shops and the artists that are, selling their little trinkets are closed, and Amazon is going to win, right? Like there's a reason sharks are one of the oldest living, creatures on the planet, right? Jellyfish. Like it's evolution. So let's accept evolution. Gentrification is not necessarily a pretty thing, but it happens. And then there's another place you can move if you don't want that. And you can switch the sport and get out of this gambling game or not. But if the product gets better, if there's 10 or more horses in a race, the CAW stuff changes a little bit, right? It's so pronounced right now because if there's 6 horses and 2 of them are complete garbage, and you've got 4 entrants, and of the 4, 2 favorites are going to be so overwhelming, and then the other 2 are really kind of like in this murky water place that doesn't really get you excited, and it's like the leftovers. It's like if things completely fall apart, this horse might win enough to give me and squeak out a profit, and I don't really want to root for that. So to me, it's the product first, and then it's the marketing second.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I completely agree with that. While you were talking that, I thought of something, and now it's gone out of my mind. But
well, if the sport doesn't get better competitive races where you have more entrants that actually have 4, you need 4 entrants that literally are all within a length or so of each other for you to have a chance at hopefully choosing the 4th choice. And then you can start getting yourself in a positive ROI. And that's this mentality that I think a lot of horse players, Shoe's good example, loves the game so much, wants to just get some action. And I know what that's like. Like when I was younger, I used to throw money around and play everything. And it was, pick 6 boys. And we did this video, and, it was all about trying to hit the pick 6. One summer I spent all summer.
I thought of what I was going to say. Sorry to interrupt, but when you're old, I'll forget it again. Another part of this is every successful horse player that I've ever met puts in the work. And if you don't put in the work, you can't win. You cannot win. If you put in the work to an obsessive compulsive point, it gives you a chance to win. I can promise you, if you don't put in the work, you will not win. You cannot win. But another aspect of being, and Shoe touched on this earlier, if you really, really, really want to play this game to the best of your ability, there are lots of pools, and they are easily researched, that the CAWs are not allowed in. For example, the cross-country pick 5. If you want to be a completely proactive horse player, and you'll have to be very selective, and you'll have to pick and choose, and you'll have to show a great deal of restraint and on all of the things that we as horse players don't really want to do because we just want to fire away. You can spend your parimutuel life ducking and dodging pools that the CAWs are not in. They're out there. There's lots of pools that the CAWs are not in. And I think that might be a part of teaching and cultivating new players as well. Tracks are still going to take handle on those races, and they're still going to take their same commission. But maybe sometimes, you can't stand up to a bully, so you just go find somewhere else to play. And you can do that in our game. They're out there.
Here's my little rant about horse racing. You ready? And CAWs and just the state of the game right now is, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say 80 to 90% of horse players grew up with either a father, an uncle, a grandfather, or somebody. You went to your local track, you made a few bets with dad, and you got kind of hooked into the game. You kind of started to understand it. You went, you had fun at the racetrack. And then as you got a job and got money, you said, oh, now I can play this game competitively, and I can play in horse tournaments, and I can, gamble a lot more money on the ponies now. That's going to be gone. And we're talking about contracting racetracks. Now, I bring my daughters to Gulfstream Park since they were little kids. I bring them to Monmouth Park since they were little kids. They know horse racing. When they're older and they make money, they may go to the track with their kids and show them what this sport is all about. The older generation is going to be gone in this game. And if we're talking about contracting and shutting down tracks, yeah, you can appeal to the massive gambler, but why are they going to play horse racing when they have to go up against CAWs, when they can go to their poker room where they may have a better advantage, or go to FanDuel Sportsbook or DraftKings Sportsbook, or go to there's going to be a casino on every street corner pretty soon. I mean, my God, New York now has one at Citi Field. Jersey's probably going to expand out of Atlantic City when that place starts to shut down. The idea of losing the younger generation of horse players because we're going to close a bunch of tracks and have, 10 racetracks with full horse fields, I don't think it's a long-term solution. I really don't. I think we're going to lose a lot of the core customer, and we're going to lose even more younger folks. I mean, people go after Griffin Johnson all the time, and I get it. Griffin's a wonderful human being, a great kid. He has exposed horse racing to more people than the three of us could ever do in our lifetimes. I mean, my daughters know who Griffin Johnson. Oh, Dad, you got to play golf with Griffin Johnson. Wow, how cool is that? I mean, he's putting horse racing in front of so many young people. And the CAW model, which is driving out the horse players, which clearly is not working for racetracks. Despite them raising purses, the retail players are walking away left and right. Something needs to be done. I don't know what it is. I think fixed odds would do huge things for this game, just on a just pure merit-based thing for the retail horse players. But I don't know. Boys. I mean, we're in trouble.
I agree with that to a certain extent. And my grandfather took me to my first horse race at Hollywood Park. But if you have a great game, like I remember when I was a kid and I lived near Dodger Stadium, my dad would take me to 20 games a year. Now a dad can take his kid to 2 games a year because it costs too much to go. But it doesn't change the fact that baseball's an incredible game, and young people are going to embrace it and love it. What you're saying about, well, your dad took you and you'd like to take your kids and all of that, doesn't change the fact that betting on horse racing pari-mutually is an unbelievably cool thing. It's going to find, water will find its level. I believe that. I understand how frustrating it is and how it seems like it's all going in the crapper. But there have been a whole bunch of other times throughout the history of horse racing where it was going into the crapper and it didn't. It's going to retool. It's going to reinvent itself. And we are going to find ways to, the Griffin Johnsons of the world, the Dave Portnoys, the Christian Hellmers of the world, who can talk to the that can talk to the percentage guys, which I can't talk to, but I can talk to them about how it feels when you spend 2 hours looking at one race and say, okay, the 4 is going to be here and then the 6 is going to be here, but watch out for the 8. And here comes the 7, but I'm going to bet the 1 because whatever. When you do that and you're right, the feeling that you get will bring you back. How do you expose that to people? You do it by things like this. You do it by putting on amazing products. I think, did you guys watch the Rail Talk interview that they did on the podcast when they spoke to Tony Olivato for 35 minutes? It was amazing. And Tony Olivato he was the executive producer at TVG, and now he is in charge of Naira Bets and Fox Sports as it relates to horse racing. And the visions that they have of getting our game out to more and more people are brilliant. They're about to launch the horse racing version of the Red Zone, which I think is going to be a very, very big deal. So I don't have this, with all due respect, Shoe, I'm not giving up. And I don't think that it's as doom and gloom as you are worried that it is, because we have this amazing game that can be played. Once upon a time, horse racing was the #1 attended sport in all of North America. Of course, that ship has sailed, and because of all of the different pieces of the gambling pie and all of that. But this is such a great game, and we will find people that we can turn on to this if we make good decisions, if we learn how to peacefully coexist with the CAWs and all of the other challenges that are going to come. A little revolution never hurt. And I think we're in the midst of that, but I am convinced that we are headed to a much better place. I'm sure of it. I am sure of it. You can't kill this sport. You cannot kill this sport. It's been tried.
We got our major network is gone. Horse players are walking away left and right.
Okay, the major network is coming back because
racetracks are closing. It's
yeah. Okay. So let's not.
But you're looking at today, Shoe. You're not looking at in what's going to be going on in 10 years.
Okay. So
the void by FanDuel is going to be, I believe strongly, will be better and retooled by Fox, Naira Bets, and what they intend to do over there. So yes, we're going to lose TVG. That's what I call it.
First of all, I got to ask you guys, does anybody really watch TVG anyway?
I watch it every day. It's on my TV 24/7.
Absolutely. So, I love horse racing. I mean, if I liked horticulture and they had the Flower Network, I would be watching it every day, all day, because I'm a sicko for that thing.
Vic, how old are you again? Is that what happens when you get 67?
Last Saturday, I turned 67.
Oh, okay. That a boy. Yeah, TVG's on it. Please, I go to the cigar lounge. The boys put on TVG for me. You go to the local bar, TVG's on.
I know, but hold on. So shoot, let me just say something here. So if TVG wasn't, first of all, interesting personalities, not profitable horse players. So when you're going to switch it out until whatever happens, you talk about, Vic, people are just going to put on the local broadcast and they're going to get virtually the same experience in my eyes. But I still think that there's a void there that needs to be filled. But I don't think that's going to save racing. I don't think a new television network is going to help horse racing, or that's not, it's about the product that's available relative to the other products. It's a 20% dopamine spike. you're 2.5 to 3 times less likely to win on horse racing if you're good and profitable than sports betting or poker or blackjack.
Shoes said, look, it's all going in the crapper because we lost TVG. That I categorically disagree with that.
Well, that was one of 3 things he said.
Yeah, no, I get that. And if you look at it in a capsule right here today, it would be hard to say that it's not going in the crapper. But I have to, and maybe I'm stupidly optimistic, or maybe I have to be all in because I'm a decade away from a dirt nap. But I have to believe that this thing that I have invested my very being in for 50 years can still be great. Otherwise,
I'm an optimist too. I agree. The game is going to be fine.
I am convinced if you could fast forward to 10 years from now, everybody is going to be talking. I am convinced of it. Everybody is going to be talking about the renaissance and the resurrection of horse racing. I am convinced of that. I know it's hard to see now.
Look at the trainers in the game. Vic, you've been in this game for how long? How many trainers in your lifetime of announcing this sport have walked away from the game in the last 10 years?
We'll get different trainers. We'll get different trainers.
Yeah, but
they can't compete. They can't compete.
This goes back to the Amazon model. Amazon is the best product with the quickest delivery, and everyone's migrated to that so that the small shops are gone. The amount of empty businesses in San Diego are everywhere. So that's evolution.
And we feel for those small shops, just like we feel for these trainers who can't make it work now. But at the end of the day, Shoe, it's not about the trainers. It's not about your daughter going to Monmouth. It's about this incredible game that somebody figured out, and that is pari-mutually betting on horses. And the greatness of that is not going away, and we will find, and people will migrate to it because of that greatness. We have to do it well. We have to put some Band-Aids on some things that are alienating people now. But this sport, it's like that scene from Apollo 13, where the guy says to Ed Harris, he says, this is going to be the worst thing that's ever happened to the space program. And Ed Harris turns and he says, you know something? I think this is going to be our finest hour. And I believe that about this sport. I think that right now we may burn up on re-entry, but I think we're going to make it. I think those chutes are going to come out. And I think that we're going to look back on this time that we had to deal with all of this that got us to a better day, and that we can rejoice in a sport that is the best sport, the best gamble, and you're not going to get me to come off of that.
No, Vic, that's beautiful, and I do think that you should run for commissioner. You can soften Rapoli a little bit with that. It'll be a nice little contrast. But like Shoe, and I hear the sigh, and I want to say this to you to support Vic on this front. I know that I've heard different numbers here, but I'm gonna softly say 1 billion, and I'm gonna go all the way up to 3 billion, and tell you that this is the quantity of money that is being bet on esports, most of which, half or more is in America. People are watching. There are companies that have 10 or more employees full-time playing video games. People are betting $1 to $3 billion a year. And I know it's a big stretch because I heard it's 1 billion in America and it's 2 billion. They're betting on watching people play that they don't even know. These aren't celebrities they're watching play NBA Jam on, these, first shooter games and stuff. That shows you that to me, Vic is right, purely from the instinct of males to want to die with their dollar or their voice or stroke their ego.
You know why they're playing esports? You want to know why?
Well, and this isn't just kids, by the way. This is
Because their dads, uncles, and grandfathers aren't bringing them to the racetracks anymore.
That's nonsense.
I mean, okay, so let's say that's true. Let's say,
and the more tracks that close, the less and less. Listen, no one gambles on horse racing unless you grew up in some way, shape, or form going to the track with your father, your uncle, or somebody.
That's complete nonsense.
94% of horse players lose. Who's coming in here at 35 and saying, "Oh, I'm going to bet on horses because I saw Sovereignty win the Kentucky Derby. Now I'm going to all of a sudden bet horses."
Shoot. You just said nobody gambles on horse racing unless their dad took them to the races. That's the biggest bunch of happy horse shit I've ever heard in my life.
Grew up somehow. I don't know one person who gambles on horses that didn't go as a child at some point, or grew up in the game with some relationship or anything. Who at 28 years old said, "Oh, you know what? Today I'm going to start betting on horses." No, you grew up going to the track.
Okay,
Griffin Johnson did.
He grew up in Kentucky.
Yeah, so let's try to tighten it, because you're both right in some ways. The value of a racetrack experience is absolutely, it's like a gateway drug.
Oh, by the way, and this is my other CAW rant. Oh, by the way, New Jersey taxpayers pay for Monmouth Park. New York taxpayers pay for NYRA. Taxpayers across the country support horse racing. How many CAWs are supporting the taxes in each of these states? Are some of that money going to school systems and police departments in these states? No, they're taking that money offshore. It's absurd. And you're going to shut down racetracks for CAWs when residents in New Jersey and New York and Florida and all these are contributing money, and that money is going towards taxes.
I mean, those are good points. I think at the end of the day, Shoe, this problem is solved by doing what you said, which is getting the game in front of people when they're young and when they're learning, and they have to have their dad there to hold their hand, or somebody to mentor them, to show them. And there's the on-track experience, and now it's going to be, more like even an online living room experience. Oh, your dad's watching a horse race. It's going to feel the same as if you were going to the track.
Absolutely correct, sir. Absolutely correct, sir. You don't. By the way, with all due respect, and you both of you will never know how much I respect not only the things that you've had to say, but the way you've comported yourself. This, and it's been an absolute unmitigated pleasure. But I do have to run, because we're going to run the races.
You got to call some races.
I got to call the races today. Shoe, it's serious. You're a serious guy, and I respect you. But this doomsday attitude and throw up your hands and say, "Well, it's just dying." If that's truly how you feel, then okay, we'll miss you. But you're wrong. It's not dying.
I love this game more than anybody. Vic, I went to bed in college.
You don't love it more than I do.
I went to bed in college with you announcing at Hollywood Park, and the Lava Man calls. I mean, I could hear the Lava Man call in my sleep. The Latruska call at Oaklawn, one of the best race calls I've ever heard in my life.
Thank you.
I live and die in this game. I'd be a
Don't give up on us. Don't give up.
I'd be a multi-millionaire if I didn't love this game, right? I love it more than anybody. I take pride in being the voice of the everyday horse player. And the frustrations,
I'm an everyday horse player.
The frustrations that I echo here, I'm echoing for the racetrack community. And people are so upset about these racetracks closing, and so upset about this just the current state of the game. And Rapoli's on there ranting, and you have trainers ranting about HISA, and you have owners leaving the game. We need better leadership in this sport. We need to go back to what worked forever. We can't eliminate the racetrack. I think the one thing this sport does better than any other is the experience of the racetrack. People going out to the Derby this week are going to have the time of their lives.
We believe in that strongly at Turf Paradise. We believe in that strongly. The on-track
it's
experience.
So important. It's so important.
It's important, but it's not a deal breaker. It's not a deal breaker.
I think long term it is. I think long term.
Well, then that's where we disagree. And
I think we need that.
And to hear that from somebody like you is it reinforces how we need to roll up our sleeves and get this thing figured out. But we're going to do that, and it can be done. And
For
people
sure.
like yourself and Christian are the reasons why it can be done. So don't give up on us. It's going to work. It's going to work, because at the core, at ground zero, our game is the best fucking game of all.
I agree.
And if we love
Period.
it, if we love it this much, if we love it and it's changed my life, built my character, spiritual journey, all
And
that
we're not
stuff.
the only ones, obviously.
Exactly. But I'm saying, Shoe, call to action is, and Vic's gonna have his dirt nap at some point here, and not saying it, but my point is, we're in our 40s, and guess what, brother? It's up to people like us to do things to, inspire people to understand it. But we have to call a spade, and we can't spread this disinformation about betting. Oh, bet the favorites and no. It's got to be about literally having discipline and choosing wisely. But I know, Vic, you have to run out here. This has been fun. Maybe we'll do it again. It's been such a privilege. I think it's so fun to compete against you in the tournaments and to talk a little smack about the industry. And I definitely respect everything you said too. So this has been awesome, guys. And
Vic, you're great, man. Love hearing from you. A lot of respect for you,
gentlemen. This is all about passion, and Shoe, I respect your passion, and I don't want to lose you as a customer. I'm
not going anywhere.
And there's a whole bunch of people just like you, even though they feel like they're being beaten up. We're going to get this right. It's going to be great. I do have to run.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vic. Thanks, Hellmers. Great stuff, guys.
All right, guys.
Have a great day. All right. Ciao.